Welcome to Beyond the Job. I'm Andrei, and this is a space for the story beneath the surface. In every chapter, we explore one word as a pathway to clarity, creativity, and change. The word for this chapter is money, a word that shapes our choices, our conflicts, and our dreams. According to Cambridge, money represents coins or notes, special pieces of paper that are used to buy things, or an amount of these that a person has. It also represents the value of what a person or organization owns, keeps in a bank, has in investments, or spends. What was that saying? Money makes the world go round. A simple phrase, yet it reveals how much importance we place on money. Sometimes, it's what gets us out of bed, eager to start a new day. Other times, it's what keeps us up at night. For most of human history, there was no money. People bartered. They traded what they had for what they needed. Grain for cloth, labor for livestock, firewood for a basket of fruit. It was simple but limited. Barter required what economists call a double coincidence of wants. I needed to want what you had, and you needed to want what I had at the same time. If not, the exchange broke down. So humanity experimented. In some places, shells, beads, or salt became early currencies, portable, recognizable, scarce enough to hold value. Later came precious metals, gold and silver coins stamped with rulers' faces. These carried the authority of a kingdom and the weight of trust. People didn't trade the metal itself as much as the belief that it was worth something. In the modern era, money detached almost entirely from the physical. Nations abandoned the gold standard. Governments and central banks began issuing currency backed only by trust in the system. Then came credit cards, plastic rectangles representing not even money, but debt. With the internet came digital transactions. More recently, cryptocurrency tried to reinvent money altogether, offering systems without banks, based on code and consensus. Each step made money lighter, faster, easier to move, but also stranger, further removed from the tangible world. The more abstract it became, the more power it seemed to hold over us. We attribute a lot of power to money, and for good reason. One of my earliest memories is visiting my godparents and receiving money from them. I loved their apartment. It felt so different from ours. I was 3 years old, curious, free to explore while my parents were caught up in conversation. My godparents had a cat. They had 2 bedrooms, not just one like at home. Each room had a different shape. The furniture and carpets were different. Even the smells were new. It was magical. When it came time to leave, my parents would help me get dressed, pick me up, and then my godfather would give me a bill. I didn't know if it was a small or a large amount. I only knew I liked receiving it. In this memory, as we exited the apartment, I asked out loud, "What about the money?" Everyone laughed, and my godfather indulged me with a wrinkled bill. I remember this one clearly. Blue-gray with the portrait of a man on it. 100 lei. Growing up in 1990s Romania was, in some ways, similar to the West. I spent most of my free time outside with friends or inside reading, watching TV, or playing video games. Our apartment block sat on the outskirts of a small industrial town. Next to it stretched a wild, unattended area. Grass, trees, rocks, lizards, and a big open field for football. Everything was free. We could turn anything into play. I still remember a cold autumn sunset when we grilled corn that some kids had taken from a nearby field. Someone brought potatoes, and I learned you could bury them in embers until they came out soft and delicious. Like everywhere in the world, Romanian money has its own story. For decades under communism, people had jobs, a steady salary, and some savings. But money was often disconnected from what you could actually buy. Shelves were empty, food and goods rationed. Many families relied on personal networks or bartering behind the scenes. Value was measured less in banknotes and more in connections, access, or a neighbor willing to trade a kilogram of flour for a service. After the 1989 revolution, the curtain lifted, and with it came a flood of capitalism. Imported products filled the shops, but inflation quickly eroded the value of the leu. Prices rose almost daily. A 100 lei bill that once felt secure turned into little more than paper. Within a few years, people carried thick stacks of banknotes for basic groceries. To buy bread, you might hand over 10,000 lei. To pay the rent, millions. Everyone was a millionaire, yet most were poor. Romania later restructured its currency, cutting 4 zeros from the leu. What had been 10,000 lei became one new leu. Daily transactions became simpler, but the memory of hyperinflation stayed in people's bones. In our household, most fights between my parents were about money. There was never enough. Recently, flipping through old photos, I noticed pictures of myself taken 4 or 5 years apart, wearing the same pair of jeans. I suddenly remembered them. My mother used to fold the fabric at the bottom inside, sew it, then release a little more each year as I grew taller. She patched them too, turning the patches into badge-like decorations. I loved those jeans. I loved everything. I couldn't understand why my parents were always arguing about money. As an adult, I began to see why money so easily sparks conflict. I wonder, what comes to your mind when you hear the word value? Do you think of numbers or something more personal, more intrinsic? We often confuse value with price. We're so used to measuring life in monetary terms that we miss what money itself is. An invention, a tool created to solve a problem. In the manga Blame by Tsutomu Nihei, the main character Kili searches for net terminal genes, a key that would allow humans to access the net sphere, a control network for the city. Without human interaction, the city expanded endlessly, chaotically, until it reached the size of Jupiter's orbit. Sometimes, I feel we've built something similar around money, a system that grows and grows, almost without control. But unlike Nihei's story, we don't need a special gene to understand it. What we need is realignment with values. Values are the bedrock of how we interact with the world. As children, we borrow values first from family, then from society. We learn the ways of the world from our surroundings. As we watch life unfold, we create definitions of what the world is and what it is not. We test these definitions. Some fail, and we drop them. Others harden into convictions. Gradually, we lose curiosity, our capacity to feel, assess, and realign. As adults, we tend to trade courage for certainty. Value becomes fixed. My memory of my godfather's gift carries a deeper weight. I learned that money was something someone else had to give me. It wasn't mine. It belonged to others. I was allowed to receive some of it, if I behaved. As my parents argued, I came to see myself as a consumer of money, part of what caused their unhappiness. My solution was simple. If only I could consume less, close to nothing, there would be more money and maybe peace. So I became less. I prioritized others' needs over my own. Like any conviction, it hid well, surfacing subtly in my interactions, my relationships, my work. Two beliefs shaped my young adult life. I must be small, and I must give of myself. Only then would I get a little of what I need. On my father's side of the family lives a deep fear. The house he grew up in was taken by the communist regime to make room for block neighborhoods. It was the last house on the street to be torn down. Next to where it stood, other houses still remain. There was nothing they could do. They were simply informed. My father received an apartment, my grandmother and aunt small studios. But the feeling of having no control, of having your life in other people's hands, settled into us. You cannot fight the system. The system always wins. I understand this truth. I've carried it. As a teenager and young adult, I fought it. And still, what if the point is not to fight the system at all? Most systems began as solutions to old problems. They are reflections of the past. What if we acknowledge them for what they are? Not destiny, not identity. Soil. At one point in my life, I imagined a threshold for income. I thought that when I reached it, I could rest, finally live. I was broke at the time. I told myself this was something to fight for. Years passed and I ended up earning twice that amount. Still, rest never came. I had built a trap, trying to beat the system, trying to be small enough to get what I needed, then becoming slightly bigger the more I received, comparing myself with colleagues, convinced I should earn more, competing with everyone. It was exhausting. Competition is a big part of our lives. We see it everywhere. We were born under the shadow of scarcity, a feeling that likely stretches back to the beginning of time. Seeing others suffer, living with the horror of their pain, taught us to adapt to survive. Even now, we strive to be better, to earn more. When we look at money through these filters, it's never just about numbers. It becomes about safety, belonging, self-worth. That's why money arguments in families are rarely about money itself. They are about fear, control, and love. The filters we developed in youth are still shaping us, but no challenge comes without reward if we're willing to work through it. Realigning with values means remembering that money was never meant to be the goal. It was a tool, a system we built to make exchange easier. When money becomes the measure of worth, it traps us in cycles of fear and competition. But when we step back and ask what we truly value, things like connection, creativity, contribution, freedom, the joy of being alive, we loosens money's grip. We see it for what it is, a mirror of our priorities, not the substance of our lives. To work with money is to learn its rhythm, not to fear its weight. It is not a master to obey, but a current to join. Money can become a channel for our intentions. We can direct it toward experiences that nourish us, projects that express us, and communities that sustain us. Instead of being only about scarcity and fear, Money can flow as an extension of our values, supporting clarity, creativity, and change. When we approach it this way, earning and spending both become acts of alignment, small choices that keep us connected to what really matters. When money flows in tune with our values, it nourishes us, it nourishes others, and it returns, changed, yet familiar, like water moving through the earth. And what better example than water to understand flow? We all need to drink water to survive. Our organs use it for cleansing, and we release it back into the world. Nature filters it and returns it to us clean. Water can't stay for too long, where it becomes stale. The sun lifts it. Vapor forms clouds. Rain feeds rivers, lakes, and oceans. Sometimes, water is hidden beneath the surface, but finding the right spot to dig a well can keep an entire village alive. Lastly, water takes the shape of its container. So, give it a shape worth filling. Thank you for listening to this chapter of Beyond the Job. Money isn't just numbers on paper. It's memory, meaning, and the flow of value in our lives. If this reflection resonated, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment, share a moment it sparked with you, or pass it along to someone who might need or enjoy it. And if you're ready to explore your own path more deeply, you'll find ways to connect with me at withandrei.com.